But they were writing a lot of words that they were never pronouncing at all. So they were going to take lots of letters, so they were going to take all these letters out, and that gives us être. But they didn't want to confuse the population. So they decided that if they'd taken something out, they had to have an indication. So they put the little hat on top of the E, where they'd taken out an S after. And that gives us our modern être. So to understand it, you've got to realise that there used to be an S there 350 years ago. But it's now been taken out. I'm not making this up. Am I right? Is it broadly accurate? Yeah. So, and now the circumflex accent is the single biggest cause of spelling mistakes in French schools, because children have no clue at all how it ever got to be there. But in Spanish, the accent is our friend. It tells us that we punch that part of the word. And this has come back and helped me with some of the work I do with English to foreign speakers. I haven't done too much of it, but in English, we really put a lot of emphasis on one word in each sentence. And we put a lot of emphasis on one syllable in each word when there's more than one syllable. Is that clear? Did you get the example? Twice. Right, we do it naturally in English without thinking about it. But we've got to learn to do it in Spanish, because if we don't, people won't understand. So, anyway, a few more useful things. That's my starting point. A few more useful things. Books that children already know can be very useful. But preferably if they're more or less identical. I don't just use, for example, Not Now, Bernard, the English version alongside the French, because they've written a slightly different story. I've translated the English version into French, quite literally, with permission, and that's available from me as well. We'll show how that... You can imagine. Pas maintenant, Bernard. They're learning the negative. They're learning a little bit of the way that French takes shortcuts in the middle of words. They're learning not to pronounce letters at the ends of words. And they're learning the shared word, Bernard, Bernard. These repetitive things help to reinforce things in children's minds. And of course, you see that this has got a Kutotek note on the bottom of it. If any of you have assistants, how many people have assistants working in their school, French or Spanish? Not very many. Right, because the French Embassy is sponsoring some seminars on this theme for assistants and NQTs. Now, there we have the way I've done it. Pas maintenant, Bernard. And that refrain keeps coming back and back and back. So although, and I'm teaching this, I've got a video of mine showing this to 6 and 7-year-olds. People sometimes say, don't teach the spoken language and the written language together because you'll get all sorts of anglicised pronunciation. But not if you do it this way. Not if you actually explain that they're adjusting the way they think when they are. And 7-year-olds can do this. Certainly 7 and 8-year-olds can do it. So you explain the adjustment, then you make it easy, and then you give them practice. A deputy head in Hackney, with whom I've done a great deal of work, said that the principle of what I do is to make everything perfectly clear and then practice. And that's what that parent at the very beginning did. Said that I had done with her daughters, explaining English spelling to them, and that's what we need to do with the foreign languages as well. But it does mean that we need to think a bit harder than some of the people that have written the textbooks have thought about how to present these things clearly. I don't know a single textbook that presents clear explanations of why things are as they are in French at the moment, and I think we need one. Physical activity helps. Anybody use these Take 10 books? Take 10? Like them? Yeah? And this is big physical activity. They've got lots of songs, Spanish, German and French. 10-minute activities, very good for primary teachers who may not be that confident themselves. They can learn alongside the children. And this movement. It's not just sitting. You've not got time to get frustrated. Everybody can join in the actions to them. And you build up the learning as you go along. And the good thing is that they're nice, clear programs. Now, come back to what not to do, copying. This is a Year 7 mixed ability class. Just checking, the thing on the right is the correct version. The thing on the left is what they've copied. The first one is an example of Eric Morecambe's famous quip that it's the right words but not necessarily in the right order. there's complete confusion there. And the teacher was actually a very experienced teacher. And she said to me, well, it doesn't matter if you see year 7 or year 8, because they don't know any more in year 8. And I thought, oh dear, this is not working. And that's what she was doing, it wasn't working. So, I've mentioned these. Way of tackling the first one. I unpack and explain everything. So I'm going to say to the children, if we're doing French, I'm going to say, 4 points yourself. We do a little verb song. Je. So all say je. Now say est. Now say je est. Who thinks that's a smooth sound? Who thinks it's a bit jerky? All right, I'm shoving it towards thinking it's a bit jerky, but that's fair enough. And they do think it's a bit jerky. So I explain what we do. We drop the first vowel and we replace it with the apostrophe. Shared word. When do we use an apostrophe in English? Oh, when we've taken a letter out some of the time. Right? Most of the time. Not all. So they will then have the children study je, and I'll clean it off or minimise it. And again, same thing, trace it with your finger. Je. Now, people who are teaching GCSE may be familiar with the problem of children not distinguishing between je and je at GCSE, are you? I see quite a lot of people nodding at that. Well, this knocks it out when they're 7. Try it. Just je, that's fine. And now we'll do jian sha. I can just write that on the board, and we look at sha, and I might even have a picture. I might even cover up the H. We've got cat. Now, what's the letter in French that we're not pronouncing? It's the T. And where is it? It's at the end. So we've had pas maintenant, Bernard. Now we've got jian sha. We're building up their understanding of not pronouncing letters at the end of words. And again, I try not to say never. Because if you count up to 10, you pronounce the final letter in a final T in a French word twice. So every time I say, our languages are like people. They have quirks. We learn languages, we learn quirks. Learn the way other people think. Now, this is clicker. And on clicker, you put any words you like into a grid at the bottom. And the child clicks on an interactive board. They can just... Now, you notice I haven't given them je as a phrase. They have to decide which of these they want. Touch it, and it goes up there. Touch that, it goes up there, and then whatever else they've got. Jiao sha. And I'm going to have to say, trust me, for the moment, because I haven't got time for me to show it, but in fact it speaks it back in French, which is barely credible in its accuracy. It is absolutely stunning. So, we then extend it. Because I'm doing this with some very bright 7 and 8-year-olds. And one of them says, I've just got a kitten, okay, j'ai un chaton. Oh, we pronounce the T now, don't we? Because it's not the end anymore. But I've got a very little kitten. So we'll have un tout petit chaton. And then we'll have un chaton minuscule. And those suggestions were coming from the class, and you just edit the clicker to put them in. So I recommend this as the most flexible tool, and here I have my caveat. John Crick, who invented clicker, is a very good friend of mine. He is the nicest millionaire that I know. And he's not the best French teacher. I'm going to say that while I strongly recommend the scheme, I don't go with the packs that they produce to teach French and Spanish alongside them. If you want to get into this, get in touch with me. I'm meeting somebody at 4:30 at the main front desk, and I'm going to show her how clicker operates in practice. If anybody else wants to join me there, we'll find a place and you can join in the demo. So this is what sentence modelling does. We've been through all of it. You can practice it on mobile devices, but that's a bit fiddly. But it gives us infinite flexibility. I can take that anywhere I want, so can the children, so can you. This is a year 7 girl who was assessed as dyslexic before I started doing sentence building, and this is the first piece of research I did. She'd been treated dreadfully by her school. She had a statement that said she should have individual work, and the school interpreted this to mean that she should be given individual attention in the class, i.e. nothing. Absolutely disgraceful. Of course, they took the money for the statement and used it for the head's carpets or something. Apologies if there are any head teachers present. That's not a general comment on head teachers, but I was really disgusted. So anyway, I showed her this using a thing called a concept keyboard. Everyone seen one of those? It's less subtle than clicker. It's a big board, and you write things on, you build sentences. Anyway, that's her writing, first of all, what she could write in English at the top. So I gave them a whole class, rather, 5 minutes to write what they could write in French. And above the line is her writing French. Below the line is the second part of the task. I asked them what they thought about writing French in English, just to write down in English, any thoughts they had on writing French. And the really sad thing, you see what she's written at the very bottom? I could write more. She could have done some more. So she's not unwilling. This is what she could do after about 3 weeks practice with the clicker. Now remember that she picked up the bad habits before she started to pick up any good ones. Not clicker, this is for the concept keyboard. And you can see that she started to write. She's got the apostrophes right, she's still got the IA wrong. It's not perfect. Look at the 5th line down. And that shows just how personal you can make this. And that's actually correct. J'ai un petit oiseau jaune qui s'appelle Cockbear. Probably should have a P in it. J'habite à Colchester en Angleterre. And she's writing that without copying or without any prompts at all. So she's actually gone from a state of total confusion to beginning to understand how to organise and write down some thoughts in French. This is a Year 7 boy assessed as dyslexic doing Spanish in a language college, as it calls itself. Some language colleges, you know, became language colleges because the head thought they had a weak department and it was a way of building up the money. I'm sure there's none of that here, but it's true. I've seen it. So, his writing was a mess. That's his first go at writing in Spanish after that was actually using clicker. And you can see that the Spanish is correct. He still hasn't, you know, I can't sort out his handwriting in 5 minutes, but he's starting to write accurate Spanish. This is the clever girl that had the chateau minuscule, and showing how she gets it right once and she starts getting it right time and time again. This is the characteristic of very able people. They see something once and then they can apply it. This is a French verb song that I use. And again, the children quite like this. The tune, I put my name on the tune because the other person who wrote it is a musician and he'd made it too complicated. Humour me. All to point yourself. Je. Point to a person next to say tu. A fella, other than that, Ian. Where is the one? Yes, Ian. L is easier. L. You notice that's all with one hand, now both hands. No. And you're all children, I'm twice as big as you, so you use 2 hands to point to me, and I use 2 to point to all of you. Vous. Now, deux garçons, il, find 2, il, and then elle. And this goes with any French verb when we sing. Je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. And it's catchy. And I do that just to build up, because I think the essence of all of this is to enable children to build up sentences. You can do that with any verb, and then we've got a shaking our heads. Je ne suis pas, tu n'es pas, il n'est pas, elle n'est pas, nous ne sommes pas, vous n'êtes pas. Right? And then we start putting things together with it. And by year 3 and 4, I'm having children writing things like je suis intelligent or je suis intelligente, knowing why they put the E on. Je suis sérieux, je suis sérieuse. Je suis poli. And they can do it because you're not getting to do too many things at once. Possible order for French verbs. Again, you can download this from my site. I've just noticed some patterns in French verbs. The tu always ends in S. In every single French verb. If I'm wrong, tell me. I've run this past the linguistic attaché and he hasn't said I'm wrong. Il in L and in NT in every single French verb. Nous ends in ONS apart from nous sommes, I think.